The street looked like a postcard. Neat lawns, identical two-story houses painted in pastel shades, and children riding bikes under the warm glow of late afternoon sun. The kind of neighborhood where everyone knew everyone, or so it seemed. To an outsider, this suburban enclave was a quiet haven, untouched by real trouble. But beneath that shiny surface, something simmered. Something unsettling. Ethan watched from his porch as his wife Claire carefully arranged a small pot of lavender by the front door. She had smiled that morning, optimistic about their new start. They had moved here less than 2 weeks ago, eager for peace after years of city noise and chaos. But today, Ethan felt a strange weight settle over him, like the air itself was holding its breath. "Do you think we'll ever fit in here?" Claire asked, her voice light, but carrying a hint of nervousness. Ethan forced a smile. "Of course, everyone seems friendly enough." But even as he said it, he caught the shadow of a woman standing across the street, eyes narrowed and fixed on them like a hawk. The woman turned away quickly when their gazes met. Ethan frowned. The woman was Karen, their next-door neighbor. Local gossip painted Karen as the neighborhood's thorn, a woman quick to complain, slow to forgive, and notorious for stirring drama. But Ethan hadn't imagined her cold stare before, nor the way Claire sometimes flinched when she caught Karen watching from her kitchen window. "You're probably just being paranoid," Claire said, but she didn't sound convinced. As twilight deepened, the neighborhood began to hum with its usual evening sounds, distant laughter, the rumble of a lawnmower winding down, a dog's bark far away. Ethan settled into his chair, trying to shake the uneasy feeling. Then, almost without warning, the front door creaked open. And there she was, Karen. Her presence was like a sudden winter chill. She stood on their porch, a faint smile playing on her lips, but her eyes were sharp and unreadable. "Good evening," Karen said, voice syrupy but carrying an edge that made Ethan's skin prickle. "I hope I'm not interrupting." Claire stood abruptly, heart pounding. "No, what do you want?" Karen's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, nothing much, just thought I'd drop by and remind you about the HOA rules. That new fence of yours, it's not quite up to code." Ethan frowned. "We checked with the committee before building. Everything should be fine." Karen's gaze flicked to Claire, and suddenly her smile disappeared. "You know, rules are rules. Some of us have to enforce them." There was something cold and threatening beneath her polite words. Ethan noticed the slight tremble in Claire's hands. The air between them crackled with tension. "Maybe next time you can give us a warning before showing up like this," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice calm but firm. Karen laughed, a sound that didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, I'm not the one you need to worry about." Without another word, Karen turned and walked away, leaving behind a silence that felt heavier than before. Claire closed the door behind her and leaned against it, visibly shaken. "Why is she like that?" she whispered. Ethan didn't have an answer. As he looked back outside, the streetlights flickered on, casting long shadows. Something about Karen's visit felt like the first drop before a storm, small, almost insignificant, but enough to send ripples through their fragile peace. Later that night, as they prepared for bed, Ethan noticed Claire glance nervously toward the window, as if expecting to see something, or someone, lurking just beyond the glass. "What's wrong?" he asked quietly. She swallowed hard. "I thought I saw someone standing outside, watching." Ethan pulled the curtains shut but couldn't shake the feeling that their perfect new neighborhood was anything but safe. And as the house settled into silence, an unseen tension hung thick in the air, waiting to erupt. The next morning dawned gray and heavy, as if the sky itself was bracing for what was to come. Ethan's unease hadn't lifted overnight. Instead, it thickened like fog around their new home. Claire tried to keep her usual warmth, but Ethan caught the flicker of anxiety in her eyes whenever Karen's name was mentioned. As Ethan stepped outside to fetch the newspaper, he noticed Karen standing on her porch, arms crossed, watching intently. Her expression was unreadable, but the intensity of her gaze sent a clear message. This wasn't over. Their street, usually calm and quiet at this hour, felt charged, as if it were waiting for something to snap. Later that afternoon, Claire decided to take the dog for a walk. The sun broke through the clouds in sharp beams, but the chill lingered in the air. As she turned the corner near Karen's house, the door slammed open and Karen appeared, blocking her path like a wall of ice. "Well, well," Karen said, voice dripping with sarcasm. "Look who's out ignoring the HOA's parking rules." Again. "That car of yours is technically not allowed to be parked there." Claire blinked, confused. "I didn't realize—" Karen cut her off. "Of course you didn't. You never seem to understand how things work around here." Claire's heart beat faster, the tone shifting from annoying to threatening. "I'm just trying to be neighborly," Karen scoffed. "Neighborly? That's rich coming from someone who's been breaking rules since she moved in." Claire took a step back, suddenly aware of the small crowd gathering, neighbors who usually kept their distance. Karen's voice rose. "Maybe you think you can come here and do whatever you want, but this is my neighborhood, and I don't tolerate disrespect." Claire's voice shook, but she held her ground. "I haven't disrespected anyone." Karen's eyes narrowed. "That's not for you to decide." Without warning, Karen shoved Claire hard. The force sent Claire stumbling against a nearby fence. Gasps rippled through the watching crowd. Ethan, who had been just a few houses down, sprinted toward them, heart pounding. "Hey! What the hell is going on?" Karen turned to face him, her face flushed with anger. "Stay out of this." But Ethan stepped between them. "She didn't do anything wrong." Karen's glare cut through the tension like a knife. "You're both going to regret this." Claire clutched her arm where it had hit the fence, eyes wide with shock and hurt. Why would she do that?" Ethan looked around. The neighbors had gone silent, as if afraid to intervene. But no one stepped forward. He pulled out his phone and dialed 911. "There's been an assault on my wife," he told the operator. Voice tight. "We need help right away." Karen's expression twisted, like a corner had been turned, revealing something darker beneath. "You think the police will protect you? You have no idea what you're dealing with." Before Ethan could respond, headlights flashed down the street, multiple vehicles, black and unmarked, pulling up rapidly. A group of men in tactical gear poured out, moving with sharp, practiced precision. Neighbors gasped in shock, whispering among themselves. Ethan stared, stunned. Who are they?" One of the men, a tall figure with a stern face, stepped forward. "We're here to secure the neighborhood. Please stay inside." Karen's face drained of color. "This is ridiculous. You can't—" The commander cut her off. "Ma'am, you're under detainment for assault and suspicion of other offenses. We will be taking you in." Karen's eyes darted wildly. "You don't understand. This isn't just about me." Ethan grabbed Claire's hand, still trembling. "What the hell is going on?" The commander looked at them gravely. "This neighborhood is more than just a residential area. You've stumbled into something far bigger." As Karen was escorted away, her terrified glare lingered on the couple like a promise of more trouble to come. Ethan helped Claire back inside, locking the door behind them. Outside, the military team began a systematic sweep of the street, their movements precise and deliberate. Claire looked up at Ethan, voice barely a whisper. "Who are these people, and why were they here so fast?" Ethan shook his head, dread pooling deep inside. "I don't know. But whatever this is, it's only just begun." The hum of the military vehicles faded into the distance, leaving the neighborhood eerily quiet. Inside their home, Ethan locked the front door twice, his hands trembling just slightly. Claire sat on the edge of the sofa, her face pale and still, reeling from the sudden violence and the unexpected arrival of the soldiers. "Who were those people?" she asked again, voice barely above a whisper. Ethan shook his head. "I don't know, but something tells me this isn't just about a neighborhood dispute." Their phone rang, slicing through the silence. Ethan picked up. A calm, authoritative voice spoke. "Mr. Harper, this is Lieutenant Mason, overseeing the security detail assigned to this area. We need to speak with you and your wife about recent events." Claire exchanged a glance with Ethan. Now the mystery was no longer just about the stranger next door. The official tone of the call made it clear. This was bigger. Much bigger. An hour later, Lieutenant Mason arrived with 2 soldiers in tow. They stepped inside with an air of disciplined urgency. Mason looked directly at Ethan and Claire, eyes sharp beneath his cap. "This neighborhood is under federal protection," he began quietly. "You are likely unaware, but several residents here are active or former military personnel. The community is a front for a sensitive military research project, something classified." Claire's breath caught. "A research project? What kind of project?" Mason hesitated, then said, "I can't share details right now, but it's crucial that everyone in this area maintains strict security protocols. That includes reporting suspicious activity, like Karen's." Ethan's mind raced. "So Karen wasn't just some angry neighbor?" "Correct," Mason said. "We've had intel indicating she's connected to a group trying to infiltrate this community. Her assault on your wife was an attempt to intimidate and disrupt our operations." Claire's eyes widened. "Why would she risk all this over a fence or parking rules?" "Because this neighborhood isn't about fences or parking," Mason said grimly. "It's a battleground disguised as suburbia." The couple absorbed the weight of the revelation in silence. The once quiet street was now a front line in an invisible war. Suddenly, Mason's radio crackled with static. He glanced at the soldiers. "We have a situation." Ethan and Claire exchanged nervous looks as Mason moved toward the door. Minutes later, Mason returned with a grave expression. "Karen's belongings contained encrypted messages indicating imminent plans to sabotage critical infrastructure in the neighborhood." Ethan's stomach tightened. "Sabotage? What does that mean for us?" Mason's voice dropped to a whisper. "It means you're in danger." Claire reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing it tightly. "What should we do?" "We have security teams patrolling the area around the clock now," Mason assured them. "But you must stay vigilant. Do not trust anyone who seems out of place, and report anything unusual immediately." As the soldiers left, Ethan and Claire sat quietly, trying to make sense of their new reality. Their idyllic dream of a peaceful life was gone, replaced by a tense uncertainty. Later that night, as Ethan checked the locks and Claire watched the shadows outside, the doorbell rang abruptly. Ethan's heart jumped. Peering through the peephole, he saw a uniformed soldier. "Mr. Harper, it's Lieutenant Mason. We need to speak. Now." Ethan opened the door, and Mason stepped inside, urgency written across his face. "There's been a breach. Karen's associates are active in the area. You and your wife must come with us immediately." Before Ethan could ask questions, Mason ushered them into a waiting vehicle. As the car sped through dark streets, Ethan glanced back at their home, feeling the weight of a nightmare just beginning. The sleek black SUV cut through the night like a shadow, its tinted windows keeping Ethan and Claire sealed off from the world outside. Ethan gripped the armrest, heart pounding so loud he thought the driver might hear it. Claire sat rigid beside him, eyes darting between the darkened streets and the grim faces of the military personnel riding ahead. "Where are you taking us?" Ethan finally asked, his voice low. Lieutenant Mason didn't answer immediately. Instead, he exchanged a quick look with the soldier beside him before turning around. "To a secure facility beneath this neighborhood. There are things you need to know. Things the average resident never suspects." Claire swallowed hard. The quiet suburban streets they had admired just days ago suddenly seemed like a fragile illusion. A secret military base beneath our homes? Mason nodded. This neighborhood is built on top of a covert research site. Officially, it doesn't exist. The houses, the lawns, even the HOA. It's all a cover. Ethan's mind reeled. What kind of research? Mason's expression darkened. We develop advanced technologies here. Technologies that could change national security forever. But that also makes us a target. As the vehicle slowed, they pulled into a seemingly ordinary garage hidden behind a row of mailboxes. A heavy door slid open silently, revealing a staircase leading down into the bowels of the earth. The soldiers led Ethan and Claire through dimly lit corridors, humming with the low buzz of machinery. Screens flickered with encrypted data, and armed guards patrolled at intervals. The couple's sense of disorientation deepened with every step. Finally, they entered a large control room where a cluster of officers monitored multiple live feeds from around the neighborhood. Mason gestured for Ethan and Claire to sit. This is where the HOA's real power lies, Mason explained. It's not just about keeping the lawns tidy or enforcing parking rules. The HOA board includes veterans and specialists who oversee security and coordinate defense if needed. Claire stared at the screens, each showing angles of their street, their home, even Karen's empty house. So Karen's attack? It was more than just personal? Exactly, Mason said. Karen was a pawn for a group intent on infiltrating this facility. We believe they want to steal or sabotage our research. Ethan's jaw tightened. And the military response, was it normal for this neighborhood? Not typical, but not unusual either, Mason admitted. We keep teams ready to react quickly, but Karen's boldness is troubling. It means they're getting desperate. A sudden alert sounded, jerking everyone to attention. Mason's eyes flicked to a nearby. Screen showing a motion sensor triggered near one of the perimeter fences. We have a possible breach, Mason announced. Security teams are investigating. Claire clutched Ethan's arm. Are we in danger? Mason's voice was steady but serious. Potentially. We're taking every precaution, but you both need to be careful. If Karen's associates are here, they could strike again. Ethan's mind raced. The calm neighborhood he had hoped for was a fragile front for something much darker, and now they were caught in the middle. After the meeting, Ethan and Claire were escorted back to their home, this time accompanied by 2 soldiers who would stay nearby through the night. As they entered, Ethan glanced around the familiar rooms, seeing them with new eyes. The house was no longer a sanctuary. It was a target. Claire closed the door slowly and whispered, "What have we gotten ourselves into?" Ethan could only shake his head. The perfect suburban life was gone. In its place was a dangerous secret, one that threatened to consume them, both. And somewhere, in the shadows beyond their walls, the threat was waiting, patient and relentless. Days passed, but the tension in the neighborhood didn't ease. If anything, it tightened like a noose around Ethan and Claire. The military presence was constant, black SUVs parked discreetly, patrols moving like ghosts through the streets. Yet the threat felt closer than ever. Ethan noticed the curious glances from neighbors, some avoiding eye contact, others whispering behind closed doors. Even friendly smiles seemed forced. The quaint houses and manicured lawns masked a simmering distrust, a silent war brewing beneath the surface. One evening, as Ethan returned from a late meeting at the secure facility, he saw a shadow move swiftly across their backyard fence. He stopped, heart hammering. No one else should be outside at this hour. Claire? He called softly. No answer. He crept around to the back door, finding it slightly ajar. Panic flared. Inside, the house was quiet, but Claire was nowhere to be. Found. His phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number appeared. If you want to see your wife again, stop interfering. Ethan's blood ran cold. Whoever was behind this was bold, watching and willing to escalate. He dialed Lieutenant Mason immediately. "We have a situation," Ethan said, voice steady but urgent. Mason's response was swift. "Stay where you are. We're sending a team." Within minutes, soldiers surrounded the house, sweeping every room and checking every corner. But Claire was gone, vanished without a trace. Ethan's desperation mounted as Mason briefed him in the sterile glow of the control room. "This isn't just an act of intimidation anymore," Mason said grimly. "They've taken her to send a message. We need to act fast." Ethan clenched his fists. Who? Who would do this?" Mason hesitated, then revealed a chilling possibility. "There's suspicion that some neighbors might be involved, either coerced or collaborating." The quiet word neighbors hit Ethan like a punch. The friendly faces he had seen every day, the quiet nods across the fence, all could be hiding secrets darker than he imagined. Claire's disappearance shattered the fragile calm that had settled over the neighborhood. Ethan was thrown into a nightmare where trust was a luxury he couldn't afford. As the hours stretched on, Ethan sat in the control room, scrolling through security footage. Then something caught his eye, a figure slipping through the shadows near the community center late at night. Zooming in, Ethan recognized the face. It was Karen, or someone who looked like her. But how? He replayed the clip. The woman moved with practiced ease, avoiding cameras, carrying a small black case. Mason's voice came over the intercom, tense. "We're tracking multiple leads, but every moment counts." Ethan's mind raced. The enemy wasn't just outside the gate, it was inside their community, blending in, watching, waiting. Then a new message appeared on Ethan's phone. "Stop digging or your wife's fate will be sealed." Ethan stared at the screen, fury and fear mingling. He had a choice: back down and hope Claire would be safe, or dive deeper into a conspiracy that threatened to consume them all. His hand tightened around his phone. "We don't give up," Ethan said through gritted teeth. "Not now. Not ever." The sterile hum of the command center was the only sound surrounding Ethan as he stared at the flickering security footage. His mind refused to accept the betrayal lurking so close, yet the evidence was undeniable. Someone inside their community was working against them. Lieutenant Mason paced nearby, his face etched with concern. "We're running background checks on every resident. No one is above suspicion." Ethan's gaze hardened. "Including Karen's neighbors?" Mason nodded grimly. "Unfortunately, yes. The infiltration runs deep." Suddenly, Mason's radio crackled. "Team Alpha reports an unidentified vehicle near the eastern perimeter. Possible hostile." Ethan's pulse quickened. "What about Claire?" Mason's eyes flickered. "We have no leads yet, but the kidnappers are sending signals. We know Claire is alive, for now." Ethan felt the weight of helplessness settle on him, but he pushed it down. He wasn't about to surrender. Back in their home, under military guard, Ethan's phone buzzed again. A cryptic message. "You're closer than you think. Watch your back." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Every shadow seemed alive, every sound amplified. He glanced at the locked door, then at the window overlooking the quiet street. Suddenly, a faint noise. Something soft and deliberate. He grabbed a flashlight and crept toward the window. Outside, a figure slipped through the shadows, moving. Silently between houses, Ethan grabbed his phone and called Mason. "There's someone out there." Mason's voice came immediately. "Stay inside. We're dispatching a unit." Minutes later, the street was alive with flashing lights and murmurs. Soldiers scoured the area, but found no sign of the intruder. Frustrated, Ethan returned to the living room. Then his phone vibrated. A video message. The screen showed Claire, bound but defiant, in a dimly lit room. "Ethan," she said, voice steady despite fear. If you want to find me, follow the trail. But be careful. Not everyone here is who they seem. The video ended abruptly. Ethan's heart pounded. This was no longer just about Karen or the HOA. It was a web of deceit, secrets, and danger woven into the very fabric of their lives. The next day, Mason briefed Ethan on new findings. We discovered encrypted communications linked to several neighbors, including one of the HOA board members, Mason revealed. They've been passing information to an unknown group. Ethan clenched, his fists. How do we stop them? We need to root out the traitors. We're increasing surveillance and tightening security, but the threat is real and time is running out. As Ethan processed this, a sudden loud bang echoed from the garage below. Everyone froze. Mason motioned to his team. Check it out. Ethan followed, heart racing. They found the garage door forced open, tools scattered, but no sign of whoever had broken in. This was a warning, Mason said grimly. They know we're on to them. Ethan looked toward the street, now shrouded in a thickening fog. The enemy was inside, and closer than ever. The tension in the neighborhood reached a fever pitch. Every creak of a floorboard, every flicker of a shadow made Ethan and Claire feel as though they were walking on a tightrope stretched over a bottomless abyss. The line between friend and foe had blurred into a dangerous haze. Inside the secure command center, Mason's team worked around the clock, piecing together clues from intercepted communications and surveillance footage. Ethan spent hours poring over data alongside them, desperate for any lead on Claire's whereabouts. Then, a breakthrough came. Look at this, Mason said, pointing to a series of encrypted messages traced back to a nearby house. One Ethan, recognized as belonging to Mark Reynolds, a respected HOA board member. Ethan's heart sank. Mark had been warm and welcoming when they moved in, the kind of neighbor you'd expect to borrow sugar from, not orchestrate kidnappings. Mason explained, Reynolds has been acting as a double agent, feeding intel to Karen's group. We believe Claire is being held somewhere in his home or the adjacent property. Ethan felt a wave of betrayal, but also resolve. We have to act, now. A carefully coordinated raid was planned under the cover of darkness. Ethan and Mason briefed the tactical team, every detail critical. As they approached Mark's house, the quiet street felt suffocating. Ethan's mind flashed back to the porch confrontation, to the uneasy smiles, to the whispered threats. Mark greeted them at the door with his usual easy smile. Evening, neighbors. What brings you here? Without hesitation, Mason stepped forward. We have a warrant. Stay where you are. Mark's smile faded, replaced by a cold, calculating stare. You don't know what you're messing with. The soldiers swept through the house with military precision, checking every room, every closet, every inch. Then, from the basement, faint noises, muffled voices, and the faintest scrape of movement. Ethan's breath caught. They found a hidden door beneath the staircase, locked tight. Using specialized tools, the soldiers forced it open, revealing a dim, cramped room, and there, bound but alive, was Claire. Relief flooded Ethan's chest as he rushed to her side. Claire! She managed a weak smile. I knew you'd come. Mark's voice echoed from the stairwell, cold and venomous. You're making a big mistake. Before anyone could react, Mark lunged, pulling a concealed weapon. Chaos erupted. Soldiers tackled him to the floor, but the danger was far from over. Ethan helped Claire to her feet, her strength renewed by the sight of him. Outside, alarms blared, as the military secured the perimeter. The infiltration had been cut off, at least for now. Back at the command center, Mason addressed Ethan. This was only the beginning. There are more cells, more operatives out there. Ethan nodded, determination burning in his eyes. Then we find them. We stop them. And we protect what's ours. Claire squeezed his hand. Together. But as they looked out the window at the darkened neighborhood, a shadow slipped silently between the houses. A reminder that the web of deception was far from unraveled. The neighborhood had transformed overnight. What was once a quiet suburban street now resembled a fortress, fences reinforced, patrols doubled, and residents watching anxiously from behind curtains. Ethan and Claire returned to their home under heavy military escort, the weight of the recent events pressing on their minds. Inside, Claire sat with a blanket draped over her shoulders, still shaken but safe. Ethan vowed silently to never let her out of his sight again. Lieutenant Mason joined them with urgent news. "We've decrypted some of the communications. It's worse than we thought. Karen's group isn't just local troublemakers. They're part of a larger syndicate aiming to sabotage national security projects hidden right here." Ethan's stomach twisted. "So all this was part of a bigger plan?" Mason nodded grimly. "Yes. And tonight they're planning a major strike." The military moved quickly to fortify key points. Ethan, Claire, and Mason convened in the command center. Maps and data screens spread before them. Suddenly, an alert flashed. A security breach at the underground facility beneath the community center. "Go!" Mason barked. Soldiers mobilized immediately. Ethan and Claire followed, heart pounding. As they arrived, chaos greeted them. Karen stood at the control panel, her expression fierce and determined. Behind her, masked operatives tampered with systems, attempting to override security protocols. "Karen!" Ethan shouted. She spun around, surprise flickering before a sneer replaced it. "Did you really think you could keep us out?" Mason shouted commands, and soldiers surged forward to intercept. The room erupted into a tense firefight of shouts and orders. Sparks flew as Karen smashed buttons, trying to trigger a catastrophic failure. Ethan lunged, grabbing her wrist, just as she tried to activate a final sequence. They struggled, breath heavy, faces inches apart. "Why?" Ethan demanded. "Why? Risk everything?" Karen's eyes flashed with a twisted resolve. "Because some secrets shouldn't be kept, because power corrupts, and because I'm tired of living a lie." Suddenly, an explosion rocked the facility, shaking walls and sending debris flying. The systems began shutting down one by one. Claire, watching from the sidelines, felt the panic rise. "We have to stop this!" With Mason's help, Claire accessed the main console, her fingers flying over the keys as she bypassed Karen's. Sabotage. Minutes stretched like hours until finally the system rebooted. Alarms ceased. The threat was neutralized. Karen and her operatives were subdued and taken into custody. As silence settled, Mason turned to Ethan and Claire. "You did more than just survive tonight. You helped protect something bigger than us, all." Ethan exhaled deeply, the adrenaline slowly ebbing away. But just as relief began to take hold, Mason handed Ethan a small sealed envelope. "What's this?" Ethan asked. Mason's expression was serious. "Something you need to see. It was found among Karen's files." Ethan opened the envelope to find photographs, images of neighbors, friends, even some military personnel, all marked with dates and cryptic notes. This isn't over, is it?" Ethan whispered. Mason shook his head. "No. There are deeper layers to this infiltration. More hidden enemies. But now we have a fighting chance." Claire rested her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." Ethan nodded, eyes steely. The battle for their home and their lives had changed forever. Outside, the night sky was calm once more, but beneath the surface, the shadows whispered secrets yet to be uncovered.